Hey guys, Luke here, and for today's video I'm going to be reviewing the preliminary final clashes between the Raiders and the Rabbitohs, and then also the Roosters and the Storm. And I got to say, first up, what an entertaining round of footy. I know there's some controversy with some of the refereeing decisions, but overall I thought the quality of football was quite good. The attack wasn't fantastic, but defense was very, very good. It was a very defensive orientated round, that's for sure. Now for me, going into these games, I tipped the Raiders and I tipped the Roosters, and obviously they both got the win. I think they were the favourites of both the games, and both the favourites have now made it into the grand final, so I don't think it's a real shock. However, I've got to say, the fact that both of the games were so close, I'm a little bit shocked at that. I thought at least one of the games would be a blowout. Usually there tends to be one close game and the other one is a bit of a blowout, but this one, it was very, very close. Both the Storm and Rabbitohs, I thought at times had a chance to win the game, or definitely within reach of winning it. Now, neither the Storm or the Rabbitohs actually got ahead. However, they were within touching distance for big parts of the game, especially the Storm. They actually competed with the Roosters for a long, long time. Also, for the Rabbitohs, they had a lot of momentum at different times. They even had that sin bin to Nicole Klodstad. So both of them definitely had opportunities to win the game, take advantage of things that were happening in the game. They just didn't do it. The defense of the Roosters and the Raiders was just way too strong. Anyways, I've been jumping between games. I think I need to pick one. Let's start off with Friday night. Let's talk about the Raiders and the Rabbitohs. So first off, I want to say it was a bit of a scrappy game. Like I said earlier, in terms of both of the preliminary final games, the attack wasn't great. In particular, the Rabbitohs, I thought they had a lot of chances in the back end, or not the back end, but in the second half, even when they were down to 10 men. The fact that they conceded the first try with Papali going through and scoring, I thought it was quite disappointing for Rabbitohs. They should have done a lot better than what they did. However, the Raiders themselves weren't great. I know they ended up scoring 16 points, but two of their tries were off some, kind of dodgy, not dodgy calls. Maybe the Jack White one was a little bit dodgy. If they'd given his try a no try, I wouldn't have complained. However, they gave it a try. I also can't really complain about that. But it's one of those calls that sometimes they give it, sometimes they don't. So if you're a Rabbitohs fan, you'd probably be spewing at that. But what I was going to say is the fact that two of their tries were off kick errors. So it wasn't really particularly anything they did really, really well. It was kind of off just some lucky kicks. In particular, the white one was very, very fortunate. The fact that he dropped it and he just happened to sort of collect it with his foot and benefited from it. But the first one was a little bit arsey as well. In terms of Corey Allen picked it up. It was a nice tackle. I can't remember who made the tackle, but the ball was forced out and the Raiders obviously scored through Jared Croker there. But what I'm trying to say is the Raiders did score 16 points. However, only the Papali try was kind of good in terms of actually something that the Raiders did good, and that was just pure brilliance by Josh Papali, who, speaking of Papali, what a final series he's had, what a season in general he's had. He's been absolutely outstanding. Him moving permanently to prop, I think, has been a masterstroke. He's always kind of moved between prop and second row, and he's always been a great player. However, he's just taken it to the next level. A lot of the talk has been on him losing weight or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like the consistency is there with him. He's had the ability to play games like he did the other night, but it was just few and far between. A lot of the times he'd save it for Origin. I think he's one of the best performers for Queensland year in, year out. In terms of he's just always there. He's always consistent. He always plays very good. Every time you watch Queensland play, you say, oh, what a good game by Papali. Now Canberra are reaping the rewards of that too. And I think in terms of the grand final next week, if the Raiders are anything other than outstanding in attack, I think the Roosters got them covered. Roosters are just so good in defense, but also so good in attack. They have those X-Factor players, and I'm aware that the Raiders also have those sort of players like Leilua and Rapana and that, but they haven't really displayed it the last few weeks, and we know the Roosters, they definitely can step up in the grand final. The question is whether the Raiders can do the same. Now, I've talked a lot about the attack not being great, but I think some of that's also due to the fact that the defense was just so good. Both of the sides actually defended really well. The Raiders, I'll say, a big turning point in the game. I know a lot of people have talked about the Josh Hodgson one where Cody Walker looked like he was going to go in and score, and he raked the ball out, but it was only like a few tackles later that they ended up scoring anyways. It was a big move at the time, but in the overall gist of the game, it didn't really do too much for me. What was a big moment in the game was right before halftime. I think it was Adam Dewey sort of made a bit of a half break, got tackled. Damien Cook jumped out of dummy half real quick and gave it to Junior Totola, I think it was, and he looked like he scored right under the post. This was literally like a minute before halftime, and it turned out the Raiders actually held them up. What a phenomenal tackle. I don't remember who actually made the tackle, but in my opinion, that actually saved the game for the Raiders. If they had gone into the break losing, it's definitely a big confidence builder for the Rabbitohs, and also it just changes everything. Ricky Stewart has to rip up his halftime notes and gives a whole different halftime talk, and like I said, for the Rabbitohs, they gain that extra bit of confidence that they didn't end up getting. So yeah, for me, that was the big changing point in the game, and it hasn't been talked about enough. What has been talked about a fair bit is Josh Hodgson. Now, obviously, he had a fantastic game. If it wasn't for Josh Papali, I think you'd give Hodgson man of the match. He was just so influential. He always is. We've known ever since he's come out to the NRL that he's a brilliant player, but he's really shown at this final series. And also, all the stripping that he does of the ball, it's just outstanding. He's the best by far. I think even stats-wise, he's got like 10 extra on the next person. I think, funnily enough, the next person is also a Raider. So the Raiders in general just very good with this new strip rule. But yeah, Josh Hodgson, fantastic player. However, what's not fantastic is, in my opinion, the head knock he got. I think he definitely should have went off. Luckily for the Raiders, he didn't, because the next 10-15 minutes, he went, like Jonathan Thurston said, he went beast mode. It's like it unleashed an animal in him. So it was good for him, good for the Raiders. Maybe he needs a head knock before the grand final next week. Maybe it will spur him on for a man of the match performance. But in terms of the actual NRL, I'm not sure how they kind of allowed that to happen, considering some of the other calls that happened in terms of head knock. Someone gets like a little slap and they're like, yep, you're off for 10 minutes, get checked out. Yeah, Josh Hodgson gets up wobbly and he doesn't get taken off. So I thought that was a bit strange, but like I said, lucky for the Raiders, unlucky for the Rabbitohs, because it just inspired him. He just turned into the next level, Josh Hodgson. Also, I just want to briefly mention the sim bin of Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad. I saw some people saying that he shouldn't have got sim binned and that wasn't really a penalty. I don't know where they're getting that from. I think it was definitely a good move from him. I think it was a tactical move. He just needed to wrap the ball up. It would have been a big turning point if Adam Reynolds, maybe had got the quick play of the ball and they could have benefited from it, shifted it to the other side and scored a try. But I think the fact that the Raiders were defending so well, and also the Rabbitohs hadn't really offered much in attack, meant that Nicoll-Klokstad had given away the penalty and then essentially given away himself for 10 minutes, getting sim bin for the rest of the game. It wasn't really that big of a move for them, because I think they're better off getting sim bin and defending their asses off than conceding the try, obviously. Because, yeah, as we saw, Rabbitohs didn't offer much. In fact, it ended up 6-6 or whatever it was. I mean, the Raiders really wrapped up the game with the one person off the field. So it didn't really affect the Raiders at all, and the Rabbitohs had their momentum killed. So it was a good move from Sia and K. But yeah, for the people saying it wasn't a sim bin, I don't understand that. I thought it was clearly a sim bin. But yeah, my final thoughts on the game. I thought the Raiders, they did play pretty well. It wasn't like a 10 out of 10 performance, but their defense was definitely 10 out of 10. I know the Rabbitohs ended up scoring at the end. It was just a consolation try through Campbell Graham. Really nothing there. The scoreline really should have been 16-10. I think the scoreline kind of flatters the Rabbitohs a little bit in the end. Really, for the Rabbitohs, I think once Sam Burgess went off injured, I know he did come back on, but he was obviously still injured. But I think once he went off, that was the game over and done with. I don't know if the Rabbitohs fans thought that. I don't know if the Raiders fans thought that. But I definitely thought that. As soon as he went down, I thought, yeah, they're done. There's no coming back here. And also the fact that Damien Cook was playing shithouse. Adam Reynolds wasn't playing very good. I thought the only one who really stood up in terms of the spine was Adam Dewey. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was very good. And even he had to come off with a head knock. Actually, I will say Cody Walker did play pretty good. One of his better games as of late. But yeah, Adam Dewey was outstanding for the Rabbitohs. But yeah, the Raiders just too strong all over the park. Their forwards really aimed up. Aiden Caesar, like I said, was a little bit disappointing, but Jack Whiten tried hard. Nicoll-Klokstad tried hard, made good meters. And yeah, they did enough. I think maybe if it was played in Sydney, maybe it would have been a different story. I thought the home crowd for the Raiders was very influential. I thought they were very motivating. It's going to be great to see them in the grand final. The Viking clap, absolutely love it. The big horn thing that they do, really like that as well. So yeah, it's going to be crazy at the grand final. I can't wait to see it. So that's the Raiders and Rabbitohs game over and done with. Let's talk about the Roosters and Storm. Now, like I said in my prediction video, I can't believe this isn't the grand final. I think I, like many, assumed going into this final series that this would be the grand final, with just how Melbourne were throughout the regular season, and we all know the Roosters are so good. I just figured they were going to make the grand final. I didn't think the Raiders would beat Storm in Melbourne, but obviously they did, and here we are. The Melbourne Storm are now eliminated because the Roosters defeated them. 14-6 it was. Boy Cordner scoring the first try. Tedesco also scoring for the Roosters, and Big Nelson, Asafa Solomona scoring for the Storm. Actually, he's been scoring a lot of tries as of late. For a prop, I think they said his stats was, I think he scored like 4 in the last 6 or something like that, but I think overall in his career he's only scored like 8 tries or something, so a lot of them have been happening as of the last few weeks, so good for you, Nelson. What wasn't good for him though was the first minute or so where there was a bit of a scuffle. I don't know, he threw a bit of a open hand slap sort of thing, and Takiaho ended up jobbing him, and both of them ended up getting sin-binned. Bit of a fiery start to the game. I've got to say, I was looking at it, and I don't really understand why it sort of happened. I mean, it seems like a bit of, I don't know, general push to the face maybe, but it didn't really seem like too much was going on, and the next minute punches are being thrown, so it did escalate very, very quickly. Now, a person who I thought was actually pretty lucky to not get sin-binned was Luke Keary. Now, I'm referring to the incident where Felice Kaufusi gave him a big fend. I gotta be honest, wasn't a big fan of that fend. I understand fends to the face do happen, but that one was no different to those open hand slap punch things. It seemed very forceful, over the top forceful. I mean, he was standing still and just whoosh right to the face. It did seem a bit excessive. I know it sounds weird to say in rugby league, but if you see it, you can kind of understand. It was very forceful, and Keary definitely thought that as well, because next minute, a lot of the talk is he pulled a bit of hair out. I don't think that was intentional, but I think what was intentional was a big swinging arm. Now, whether he actually fully connected, I don't know. Good thing he didn't, I guess, because I think he would have knocked him the hell out, because Kaufusi ended up going off with a HIA. Now, initially, the broadcast was saying that he failed his HIA. I don't think that was the case. I think the NRL's come out and said that he did pass it. However, he stayed off due to a rib injury. Regardless, though, he went off due to a HIA. There was some contact to the head, and Keary has clearly thrown a swinging arm. In previous games, I remember a Michael Jennings incident earlier this year. I think there's been other times where a swinging arm sort of happened and a player's gone off through concussion, and it's been like an automatic sin bin. I don't understand the rules here. Is it an automatic one or is it not? Leave in the comment section below. Am I just imagining things, or has that been happening throughout the season where someone's did an illegal shot and the person's gone off through a concussion and it's been an automatic sin bin? Because I feel like it has been like that. For the Storm though, Kaufusi, definitely a big loss. I mean, he's one of the best second rowers in the world, and I think the fact that they didn't really have anybody who could cover him, I think the Vunivalu injury threw a bit of a spanner in the works. As Will Chambers was on the bench, I suppose Stimson wasn't ever going to be in the side. He's moving to the Bulldogs anyways next year, so maybe they didn't want to reward him. I thought he was a pretty decent player, but Chambers was on the bench. He ended up starting through Vunivalu being out injured, and instead of throwing in another forward, they put Shandor Earl onto the bench. I thought it was weird. It did kind of come in handy eventually in the back end of the game, as Pappenhausen, I don't know, broke his jaw or something. Definitely injured his jaw to some extent. I mean, it was blood everywhere. So having a winger to come on wasn't necessarily a bad move in the end. But Dale Finucane found himself out in the edge, and I'm a Bulldog supporter. I watched a lot of Dale Finucane. He never played second row for us. I don't think he's ever played second row in his life, to be honest. He was always a lock or a prop. So putting him in the second row, I mean, he can do a job for you, I guess, but he's way more effective in the middle. So sucked for the Storm that Kaufusi ended up getting injured, especially considering he's an 80-minute rep player. He's a very, very talented player. We all know that. And yeah, it was big for the Roosters that he wasn't there, and it was also big for the Storm that he wasn't there too. He was definitely a big loss for them. Speaking of second rows though, Boy Cordner, absolutely outstanding. He just ran amok all night. He was very, very good. I thought also Angus Crichton was pretty good. In fact, all the Roosters forwards were very, very good. I spoke in my predictions video about Hargraves being out and him being very influential, and that the Roosters forward needed to step up in his absence, and they definitely did. And especially their second rowers. Orbison was pretty decent, he always is. I think he went off through a concussion in the end too. But yeah, Boy Cordner scored a try, just led from the front. What a great player he is. Now the Storm, I thought they played a pretty good game. I was just talking about the Roosters forwards being good. I thought their forwards were pretty good as well. I thought Bromwich was good. Big Nelson, he's been outstanding this final series. Scored a try. Unfortunately for him, ended up getting sin bin, like I said, in those first 10 minutes. But I thought he still had a pretty good game. The Storm in general had a pretty good game. Had they been playing a team other than the Roosters, they probably would have won. It's just the fact that the Roosters are just next level. I don't really feel like the Roosters ever got out of, third or fourth gear. They didn't really kick it into the final gear. They didn't ever have to, really. Now, I know the Storm, for me, it felt like, at times, I felt like the Storm could have won it, especially when it was about 8-6. But that Tedesco try, it really just killed it off for me, especially with Pappenhausen going down injured at the time. I thought Pappenhausen was having a pretty good game at that point. And yeah, as soon as he went down injured and there was reshuffles happening, and especially with Kaufusi already being out, I was like, yep, that's the Storm done. In fact, even when Kaufusi went down injured, I was kind of like, yeah, Storm are really, really going to struggle here. I can't see them winning. And I think at that point it was about 8-0. I thought the Roosters might have run away with it, but it's just in the Storm's DNA. They don't get a lot of points put on them. So, yeah, it makes sense that the Storm were in the game and within distance of the Roosters, but it also makes sense that the Roosters won, and the Roosters won fairly comfortable despite the scoreline, in my opinion. But, yeah, the Roosters Storm, it's always a good game, and last night was no exception. I'll just say this about the Roosters. I think it's a bad sign for the Raiders next week. The fact that I felt like Raiders, they played kind of their grand final last week. Making the grand final them, it's a huge achievement. You saw how the Raiders fans were after their game. Compare it to how the Roosters were after their game. It seemed like two completely different shades. For the Roosters, it felt like it was, yeah, just another game. Another grand final. Hey, go us. Can't wait to win it next week. Where the Raiders, it was like, it was their best achievement of their life. They couldn't believe that they made the grand final. And I think that's what's so great about the Roosters. They just seem so cool, calm, collected, not only on the field, but off the field as well. But yeah, even against the Storm of all teams, they never really seemed fazed by anything. They just, yeah, like I said, cool, calm, and collected. I never really felt at any time they felt under the pump or under heaps of pressure. They were just, I don't know, they were just doing their thing. And like I said earlier, I never felt like they got into that 5th gear. I thought they were in 3rd or 4th gear. They could have turned it up a notch if they had to. It's just, they didn't have to. They were just sort of in control. But yeah, overall, the Storm did pretty well. They gave a great effort against the Roosters. I don't think anyone would have beat the Roosters last night. However, we'll find out next week. Can the Raiders beat the Roosters? Personally, I don't think so at this point, but we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe my thoughts will change as the week goes by. It tends to happen a lot. Immediately, my first thoughts are something, and then by the end of the week, I'm sort of thinking something else. But I've always said the Roosters were going to win the premiership. Will they prove me right and prove, I don't know, about 90% of the population right? We'll just have to find out. Well, guys, that was my review of the 2 preliminary final games for 2019. Leave in the comment section below, what were your thoughts of the game? Did you enjoy it? Did you think there was some shitty refereeing calls, some great tries? Just let me know in the comment section below. Also, while you're at it, guys, you may as well go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram. It's on the screen right now, Mr. Luke and YT. Also, add me on Snapchat while you're at it. It's also Mr. Luke and YT, same as what's on the screen right now. Go ahead and give me a follow on Facebook as well. It's Mr. Luke. Okay, guys, that's the video over and done with. I'm going to be trying to post a lot considering it's grand final week, so might try and pump out a video a day. At least that's the plan anyways. So, yeah, stay tuned on the channel. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.